Have you ever had a hard time designing a logo? As a designer with over a decade of experience in logo design and branding, it may be ironic, but I can admit that I have with nearly every single branding project that I've designed. And here's the thing, I realized over the last year or so that I was following this traditional path as a designer when it comes to designing logos that really didn't jive with kind of my natural perspective as a designer. The traditional process goes something like this. Think about the brand and strategy of the client that you're designing for, and then turn off the computer and hit the notepad sketching out different logo concepts. Think about different fonts that you would select, different kind of concepts and icons and illustrated marks and things like that. While I love this part of the process and still implement it, what I realized is that this part of my process actually isn't always step one. What comes after step one typically is taking that logo design into Illustrator, vectorizing it, creating a logo design, and then from there, always designing in black and white first, and then thinking about color selection, and then thinking about typography and brand patterns and things like that. And then after that, thinking about brand collateral, such as business cards, layouts, websites, whatever it may be, packaging, things like that. And it's almost a very linear approach and segmented approach to graphic design and logo design. And what I realize is that my perspective as a former in-house designer often jumps to the very end of the project, thinking about that collateral component, thinking about layout design and typography and grids and color and things like that. And I almost felt guilty for thinking about that when I'm supposed to be at phase one, hitting the sketch pad with pencil and paper and thinking about logos. And so it wasn't until the last year or so that I realized that I kind of approach graphic design and logo design specifically in more of a backwards kind of way. A backwards branding approach is what I'm calling it, or logo last approach. And that really, it's a really fluid process throughout all those steps, and it's less linear. So in this video, I want to walk you through what that backwards branding approach looks like with an actual client. Myself and the designer I work with, Ash, designed for a company, an actual client, using this backwards branding approach. So you can kind of walk through each step of the process with us and see what works for you. And hopefully you find this helpful. Let's go ahead and dig in. All right, so here we are in the first step of our backwards branding or logo less approach, which is what I'm calling the brand style tile. This is the kind of intermediary step between what we do as a mood board that the client sees, kind of different visual creative directions, and the brand presentation. This is a new step that my team has incorporated into our process that helps us get on the same page and also kind of embraces this kind of backwards branding approach. And basically what this looks like is a work in progress brand board as we're designing the logo to help us test out styles like for type and color. And you can see it's a really simple framework. You can feel free to add as many kind of blocks as you want to this style tile, but this is kind of a framework that's worked well for us. What I love about it is it helps us to incorporate the entire brand in its context rather than focusing on the logo first and having a lot of emphasis on that logo design, and then kind of thinking about these elements secondary. Not to say that if you approach your branding process in that way that that's bad by any means. Actually, that's probably what you'll see recommended most. But I've just found my kind of natural tendency is to consider everything all together. This could come from my background as an in-house designer, just jumping to thinking about brand application. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to reveal this entire brand and its context and just kind of walk you through each step of this backwards brand process. So this is for a company called Little Blue Nest. It's a baby company that sells swaddles and just all sorts of baby clothing and products, bedding, things like that. And it's a beautiful custom patterns that they create. And so for this brand, we really wanted to make sure we highlight their products really well, not to distract from that with the brand, as well as give room for that beautiful photography to shine. And I'll get to those photos in just a little bit. But for the style tile, what I like to do is really have photography come into a bigger play into the design process than I had before implementing this process. So knowing that this is an e-commerce shop, photography is going to be huge for them on social media as well as their website. And so incorporating their actual products, you'll see in the upper left some of those swaddles, and then just some images that kind of showcase the style that they go with, kind of a light and airy style with those neutrals, helps us as we're creating the brand to really focus on those images and design type that really is cohesive with that. On the left side, you'll see this kind of tan box, and this just helps us to think about typography. Will these fonts be used in the end? I don't know at this point. This is just work in progress for us. Behind the scenes, we might have several different style tiles as we play with these, or different blocks that we'll plug and play and just kind of see what works. In the lower, or kind of in the middle lower section, you'll see that kind of aqua blue box, and that's again just some more typography exploration. And then I like to incorporate the brand words in the bottom to just help sure that we're keeping those things in mind as we're designing. So this is a look at kind of the brand board. During this process, we might also be sketching, and we might also be designing a logo, elements on the computer, submarks, things like that. Our process isn't so rigid in that we do this first and then we do the logo design, or then we do the logo last. It's kind of fluid and just really depends on the project. And here is a look at some of the sketches that we did in conjunction with that brand style tile. You can see that just because we start on the computer and we have those assets available in Illustrator doesn't mean that we really stay on the computer the whole time. We love to get back to sketching, and Ash, the designer behind this brand, is just a fantastic illustrator. And so she takes to paper to really kind of sketch out concepts, write down some ideas, test out some kind of letter manipulation or submarks or monograms or illustration icon styles, things like that. And this is a really fun brand that we got to play with birds because of the background of the name of the brand. And some really fun illustrations come to light here. Here is a closer look at some of that typography sketching. For this process, you can simply just type out a font on the computer and print it out and trace it and kind of start messing with different ligatures and customizations to the type if that's something that you think this brand would benefit from. And really making sure that you're considering that brand style tile that we created earlier and keeping that up for reference, but not being tied to or limited to the computer, and really getting still our hands into the logo process. We never want to diminish the logo by any means. Even if we design it last in our design process behind the scenes, does not mean that it is not significant. It just means that it's part of the process, and I don't feel like things need to take turns in certain ways, and really just kind of embrace a more fluid approach into a type-driven design process. All right, next up, I'm going to show you what this actually looked like whenever we presented it to our client. So here is a look at the brand presentation. This is the exact page that our client saw whenever we presented the brand to them. And you can see we include our sketches along here, and then we actually provide some kind of background information. We walk them through this on the video call as well, but it's there for them to reference later if they want. Here's a look at the final logo design that we presented to them, and then some submarks as well. And then you'll see some application. You can see we've done a sample kind of opt-in section where the client can see the typography and color in use in conjunction with their photography. Again, this is pulling from our brand style tile and really tying that in. So we've done some of the legwork up front, and then we can just kind of apply it to our presentation here. And then showing the logo in different contexts, as well as patterns, and showing the logo large, as well as what it could look like mocked up on one of their small swaddle blankets, some pattern designs, and then different submarks and such here, down to some fun icons, and you'll see those in use on their website and in social media. So our brand presentation really shows everything together, and you can see how we transitioned from that style tile into what that looks like in this brand presentation, and it's a pretty seamless process throughout. Next up, I wanted to show you some photographs that our client sent us that actually use the logo in context. It's important whenever you're designing a logo that you think of the use case end of mind in your process, but For this brand, we knew it would be small on a tag and also large on these kind of larger packaging items, and we designed all of these for them. And so you can see it here, small and then also large on those gift bags. Here's a look at the logo in context with some of the different brand elements in packaging. So there's a tag with a ribbon wrapped around. Again, that kind of holistic look into branding and not just thinking about the logo and the significance of that, but the entire brand in context. And this is actually a pattern that you saw on our style tile from the get-go. So of course it's going to tie in really seamlessly with the end product. Here's another look at that packaging design. You can see the larger gift bag as well as packaging a belly band around those different items that they have, the swaddle blankets. And so you can see how the logo comes in context with the typography, the color palettes, and the actual product in mind. Again, that holistic look at the brand. And finally, we get to see the brand in context on her website, littlebluenest.com. And Ash, the designer with Spruce Road who designed the brand for Little Blue Nest, also has a website design studio, the Curio Collective, and they designed this website. So it's a really smooth transition to web. And here you can see all of those brand elements really come together in one page, which I love seeing as a designer, down to the logo, to the typography and color that we selected, those layouts, even those little bird feet kind of incorporated throughout their photography. You can see those icons displayed as well. And just different layouts that really incorporate the entire brand together, even utilizing some of those key photos that we incorporated in our presentation and style tile into the final website design. So that's a look at really how everything came together for Little Blue Nest, from the style tile down to the sketches, to the presentation, to the final website design. Our designer Ash did a fantastic job with this, and I love being a part of the creative direction and project management behind this with Spruce Road and testing out this new process with backwards branding. And what does that look like if we don't design the logo first, but instead maybe it's in conjunction with the type layout, sample type layouts, or even last in the process. And the end result is something that I absolutely love. And so I encourage you to take advantage of this process and test it out if this feels natural for you. And let me know how it goes in the comments.